I'm so happy and honored that I get to introduce him for today, and his sermon title for today is Fishers of Men. Please join me in welcoming up Ori!
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. What a wonderful day to be alive, right? It's a beautiful Sunday. Woo! So why am I up here? That's the question I've been asking myself for the last couple days. For those of you who don't know me very well, my name is Ori Rodriguez. I am a first gen. I was introduced to the Divine Principle sometime in mid-2017. I finished around March, and then immediately after that, I finished the autobiography of True Father, super inspired by that. Really beautiful book, and it really changed the way that I saw the value and the purpose of my life. But it didn't stop there. I immediately went into the Hyeojung trip for, I think it was 2018 at the time. And man, it was crazy. So I finished Divine Principle. A week later, I read the autobiography. A week later, I went to the Hyeojung trip. And then after we got back from the Hyeojung trip, I started planning my position as the vice president of a CARP chapter. So I guess my spiritual life has been moving a lot faster than I have been physically. But it's been super inspiring. It's been an amazing ride. And honestly, I wouldn't have the courage or the power to be able to stand in front of all these people right here if there wasn't some underlying force of love that I really felt from everybody here in this building. So I just want to say thank you to everybody here in this building for really welcoming me, someone who hasn't known all you guys very well, but I have to say that this definitely feels like I've been a part of the family forever, and whenever I sit down with one of you guys for the first time, it's like we've been like first cousins that we just met up like after a while. So I just want to say thank you guys so much for really creating a community where an individual from the outside can feel very welcome and actually feel at home, because when we're talking about God's providence, the main point is being able to make everybody feel at home and being able to feel welcomed and loved by God, right? So amen for that. Yeah, so today I was one of the participants at the Hyeojung trip that just happened. As you saw, we went to the DMV area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, and then there's another 25 students and youth, and Kodon as well, that went to Chicago. And so I wanted to give a little bit of background as to why we went on that Hyeojung trip. But first, I just wanted to open up with a little bit of scripture. In my experience of church, I always saw the sermon or the message always start off with a message from the Bible. So if you guys have your digital Bibles or your physical Bibles, go ahead and open up to Matthew chapter 5, verse 3. I'll just give you guys a second to do that. It's the reason I chose this. Actually, I'm sorry, Matthew 4:18. The reason I chose this specific scripture was because I felt that it really embodies and it really captures kind of where I'm at right now in my life. And I'll let it speak for itself. So, this is my flexing Bible. People don't think that I'm spiritual. I bring this guy out to make it looks intimidating. All right, here we go, sorry. All right, so Matthew 4:18. Jesus calls his first disciples. As Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. And then Jesus said, "Come, follow me," he said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." At once, they left their nets and followed him. That's it for that one. So, a little context. I forgot to set the timer. A little bit of context. So basically, I've been going to church. I'm 21 right now. I've been going to church since I was 13 at the Church of Christ, so a very traditionalist, fundamental Christian church. And it was bilingual. It was Spanish. And so it was really hard for an individual that doesn't speak Spanish to really stay intrigued and stay awake during those things. And so I had a pretty interesting experience, to say the least, about my early church days. And that kind of formulated the foundation for me to have all these questions and answers that Divine Principle was able to answer later on in my life. But I'll get a little bit more into that in a little bit. So the purpose of this testimony, the reason why I'm up here today, is because I wanted to show the impact of witnessing, mobilizing, and also outreach that I saw, especially during the Hyojung trip this past month. And I'm going to share three things. I'm going to share a little bit of my childhood leading up to today, very briefly. I'm going to share how it was when I was meeting this movement, first introduced to it, including my main takeaway from the past Hyojung trip that I mentioned. And then lastly, I want to mention what I've come to learn about America's purpose and also providential mission. So going back to a little bit of background about my childhood. So my mother was Catholic, never went to church. My father, he was Christian. He went to church every single Sunday. And then the stars aligned when they were working at Target, and then they met each other. And then about a year later, I was born. And then 2 years later, they actually separated. So my whole life, I didn't really have two parents inside the house. I had both parents. Thank the Lord. I had both my parents. My father and my mother loved me very much. And however, I always felt kind of like in the middle of this weird Cain and Abel discrepancy. My parents were always, utilized me to settle the issues that were going on inside the family. So it was tell your mother this or tell your father that. So as a child, you start to grow this kind of animosity depending on who you're with, right? If I was with my mom, then my dad was the bad guy. If I was with my dad, then my mom was with the bad guy. And so it was really weird, and I knew that it wasn't normal. I knew that there was something else, but I couldn't put my finger on it because I was only 8, 10, around that age. And so I grew up, and I saw my dad going to church every single weekend. I would visit my dad on the weekends, and I would hear him praying and worshiping, and the people around me in the congregation were praying and worshiping. But then once we went home, that was all out the window. It was nobody was practicing forgiveness. Nobody was practicing mercy. Nobody was practicing the things that we just left the church for. And so I didn't actually make the connection they're not practicing what they did. However, looking back, that's what I see now. And going back to the main point was that I thought that I felt that there was something more. I couldn't put my finger on it. And so as I'm growing up, you go through the secular. My mom didn't go to church, so when I was living with my mom during the week, I didn't go to church, or I didn't go through any Bible study or anything like that. All the amazing opportunities that we have here at this church, which is super awesome. War Room on Wednesday nights, if you guys are free, that's something that can really change your life if you want prayer. Honestly, that's amazing. Thank you to all the individuals who lead that. Wow, that's been definitely something that has been like a spiritual energy drink in the middle of the week when you're getting caught up in your homework assignments and finals and stuff like that. But anyways, so I was going and I wasn't experiencing anything special. I was living in a house where my parents were always arguing and things like that. I mean, I'm sure that happens all over the place, but that was just personally my life. And then one day when I was at my dad's house, he told me, we're not going to go to church today. And I asked him why. I was kind of excited, but I wanted to humor him and pretend like I was sad. And I was like, oh, why aren't we going to church today? And he's like, I don't want you to go to church unless you want to go to church. He's like, I don't want to force you to go to church. I don't want you to grow resentful towards going to church. I want you to make the decision to go. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I thought that we were going to go the next weekend, but I actually didn't go to church for the next 5 years. So I was gone. Yeah, I was out. So I had no connection to the church whatsoever, completely different as to what I'm experiencing now in this point of my life. But yeah, so I didn't go to church for about 5 years after that. And so I was 18. I graduated high school, went to Cypress Community College, and then I was witnessed to. And so I was able to finally be able to dip my toes into the meaning of Divine Principle and actually the application of Divine Principle. And coming from somebody who comes out from outside of this movement, I understand that a lot of you youth were born into this movement, but from someone who's looking in, it was something very profound, something that was it's I don't know, when you're a child and you experience gravity, but you don't know the word for it, you just say yeah, if you drop something, it happens, right? You knew that there was love. You knew that there was a way for parents to be able to stick together and be able to love their child and experience God's love through the family, but you just didn't know what the keys were, what the formula was, what the name for everything was. And then here's this book, this I don't know, 400 pages or something like that, with red, blue, and yellow. Lays it right out for you, And so I was like, wow, this is insane. This is actually really interesting. And, it wasn't all roses and daisies and things like that, getting from the beginning to the end. It was a struggle because, my favorite topic was not reading. But to conclude this personal testimony aspect of it, was that, I was able to finally I was able to find what God had created us all for. Before, I didn't recognize that. Before, I thought, everyone's mission or responsibility was to get a job, make a lot of money, put your family in a big house, have some fancy cars, donate to some charities, and that's about it. Hang out with family and things like that. Just your immediate family. That was my mindset. Just your immediate family. And then when I come to this community, there is no immediate family. It's like it's just like, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? Talking to everybody, just like you guys are just brothers and sisters. And it's actually so beautiful. That's the way it's supposed to be, right? But there's a lot of people out there right now that don't know that don't experience that. Right now, there's individuals in their house right now, like playing video games or even hearing their parents argue, or maybe there's a kid grabbing his stomach because he's hungry right now because he doesn't have food. So, I came to recognize how blessed I was and how blessed I was to be able to be a part of this movement. It really gave me a perspective about how blessed I was for God to be able to reach out to me and at this point in my life. So, so it was really powerful being able to finish Divine Principle, being able to experience True Parents' Heart. That autobiography, oh my gosh, like you can't look at a bowl of rice the same way after reading the autobiography, right? It's completely different, yeah. And so, when I'm feeling humble, I have those thoughts before I eat, and so it was really powerful. And then the Divine Principle, really laying down, how to be able to establish a pure 4-position foundation so that you can be able to welcome God into your relationship. And if it's not working out, what steps to take so that you can be able to reach that level of love. And I was able to understand a lot of things about heaven as well. But, so that all led up to the Hyojung trip, right? So this past Hyojung trip, I went to DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia. And again, the reason why we went over there was the result of April 6th. So who was at April 6th, the rally at City of Refuge? Awesome. I wasn't there. But my brother was getting married, so I was really struggling, honestly. I almost didn't go, but I was the best man, so I was like, I don't know how I'm going to explain that to my brother. That would have been awkward, right? It's like, can we have the rings? Anybody? Okay. Yeah, so April 6th, I got to see the video. It was super powerful. I wish I could have been there. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm so glad that everyone records and translates the videos, because then you're able to watch it and actually understand what she's saying the second time around, right? And so the thing that stuck out to me and the thing that stuck out to Jermaine and the individuals that were planning the Hyojung trip was that True Mother was speaking heavily about the mission of America. True Mother was speaking directly to the Christian community, and also she was speaking directly to everybody in these pews, right? Everybody in this congregation. And it was really powerful, and it's really easy to just kind of like sit there and like listen to it and just let everything go right over your head and just be like, yeah, that's not me, that's the guy next to me, or that's the Kodan mom next to me. But actually, the really powerful experience that I had at the Hyojung trip was recognizing that I am that person. Right? There's a peace rally going on. It's like peace starts with me or something like that. It's just like really profound, but so simple. So True Mother was speaking directly to America, saying, America has this amazing foundation through all this dark and bright history that has been accomplished, and has set a foundation for Christianity to be able to reach out to the rest of the world, right? In Jesus' time, Rome was being established, right? So Jesus was supposed to be able to become the king in Rome, so that Rome would be able to have an influence over the rest of the world, right? And so now that we have, social media, Twitter, all that scary stuff, now America, literally everybody in the whole entire world is looking at America. If not all the time, at least sometimes when they're talking about politics or things like that. So here, Americans, whether you're American or Japanese or Korean or anybody, the country that you're sitting in right now has this immense, deep, profound, unfathomable responsibility of being able to literally witness the entire world and mobilize all the individuals that have been able to be prepared by God, aka the Christian community, right? So as a Christian, I felt that True Mother was really speaking to me, and as a Christian, I felt that, I had the key, I was part of this family or part of this group, and everybody was in the darkness, and I had this key, and I was like, how do I get this key to these guys over here? And then I would step out, and I'd be like, hey, I have this, and they'd be like, oh, what's that black book? That's not the Bible. And so I was like, oh man, that's kind of tricky, huh? Yeah. So I had to do a little bit of studying, right? You have to be informed, you have to be knowledgeable, but you don't have to be a scholar in the Bible. Literally all you have to do is be able to offer your heart. I'm not a pastor, but I'm up here talking to you guys, because I have something that I think that will be able to resonate with one of you guys, at least one person in this building, and that is, to recognize that each and every single one of us is chosen. Yeah, we all hear Tribal Messiah too much, but you're chosen, right? And so it's really hard to feel that way, when you're going to work, when you're doing your part-time job, when you're going to school and you're doing test scores and you get like bad grades and stuff. It's hard for you to feel like you have this infinite, absolute responsibility. But the profound thing that I've been able to experience over this Yeojang trip was that, you don't have to be like the most capable person in order for God to work through you, right? If you're not that good at speaking and you have one person that you're comfortable speaking with, there's your ticket in right there, right? You start small. And so for myself, I started small. I was, like I said, my father was very traditionalist, fundamentalist. So whenever I'd come back from like a DP workshop, I wouldn't tell him what I learned in DP, but I would ask him some of the questions about Christianity that kind of like paralleled the divine principle. And so when he would say like, oh yeah, that's right, like that makes sense. And I'd be like, yes, like one step at a time, so that he understands. So then one day I can be like, hey, remember that one question that you said yes to and you totally agreed with? That was actually from this. And so I'm planting the seed. So each and every single one of you guys, you have the opportunity, you have the capability of planting that seed. If you learn something from divine principle, if you learn something about love or value, you don't have to go up to your friend and say, hey, read this book so we can talk about value. No, you just go grab a cup of coffee and talk to them about that kind of thing. You don't have to say where it came from. Although at the end, of course you should, because you want them to be a part of this community, right? That's the beauty of it. You can't just experience God's heart through just divine principle, right? Like being a part of the community is where it's at. Like the physical movement is where it's at, right? The studying, that's on your part, but being able to feel that communal, that familial aspect comes from being able to be a part and around the individuals here in this building as well, and also outside this building throughout the whole world. And so, the Yeojang trip was amazing. I'm going to talk about that right now. So a lot of things took place at the Yeojang trip. We studied divine principle in Big Bear. We had a really strong, empowering Brothers' Night at Big Bear as well that I'll never forget. And then we went to City of Refuge as well when we were in LA. That was really powerful. We took like a lot of people over to City of Refuge. And then when we were in Maryland, someone recognized us from City of Refuge, which didn't make sense, but they traveled, somehow they met us. There was no planning, but they saw it was really weird. But spiritual, right? It all happens for a reason. So we went to City of Refuge. Actually, Edwin Perry actually shouted us out in his announcements. He was saying there's a group of individuals going to Chicago and DMV area, and he asked them to pray for us and look out for us. So it was beautiful. So Christianity, even subliminally, they're praying for us, they're hoping for us. So we got this. We got the support of Christianity, absolutely, without a doubt. And then we also did some things that ranged from Mujikon dance practice. If you're not dancing Mujikon, you're not a BC. You're not a first gen. Sorry. So we did some Mujikon dance practice and meeting congressmen in Capitol Hill. It was really powerful. We always think that CARP or Family Federation is just like a spiritual movement, but this is global. It's economical. It's congressional. It's it's spiritual, all these different aspects, right? It's not just spirituality. Just like we learned, in that podcast, Family Vester, Famvester, I gotta check that out. But divine principle can be applied in every aspect of your life, and it's only as effective as you make it, right? It's only as effective as you practice it, and that's the cold, hard truth that I've been able to experience about using divine principle to grow yourself. And so the focus for the DMV people that went to the East Coast, essentially, from the things that I took away, the focus was church mobilizing, Family Federation, church outreach, divine principle study, and if you ask Naoka-san, it was to meet Maxine Waters on Capitol Hill. So, Maxine Waters is one of the congresswomen that Bishop Noel Jones has a really strong relationship with, so we wanted to go talk to her and show her all the things that we've been doing. And so, I want to talk about some of the things that stuck out to me and had the most impact to me, because as a first gen, it's really easy for me to sometimes feel like, I always say that I'm a part of this community, but every single day, sometimes you struggle, right? You struggle with your determination, your motivation, all those different types of things. Sometimes I'm like, is this really, not recently, but sometimes I struggle with, how can I create the most value and purpose out of my life in this community and be able to fulfill my life to the fullest? And so the first thing that we did that I remember that was really powerful was we went to New Hope Church in the East Coast. And the powerful thing about that was that it was a lot of the East Coast members actually drove up to 2 hours to come to this one church building to come see the people from LA. And so first and foremost, that was really powerful, right? Imagine someone driving 2 hours just to see you, right? They recognize that you're coming and they want to come support you. So they came over and they came and said hi to us. We ate dinner, we broke bread, and then we got to hear some testimonies. I shared a testimony, and then Kodai Abe got to share a really beautiful testimony about really overcoming the struggle of a second generation and being able to find your determination in this movement. It was really powerful because as a first gen, I don't relate to that. But as a second gen, I totally understand the importance of finding your spirituality. And so I feel for those who are, still searching. It's going to come eventually, right? You're going to have that burning desire to want to comfort God's heart. But I totally understand the struggle of being able to find your spirituality. So listening to Kodai's testimony was really beautiful because he got to explain how in the beginning, he didn't really feel like he kind of saw the way how like everyone else is going to kind of take on the burden, and he was just kind of go out and kind of make money and be successful. But then he had a really powerful experience with Kengo and Kyosei. They really inspired him to make him want to make a difference and want to get involved and recognize that there's weight that he wants to carry as well. So we got to hear that as well. It was really beautiful. A lot of individuals were really taken away from that. And then I got to do my testimony rap, if you guys didn't hear that already. That was really fun. And so the beauty, we did War Room. You guys are going to hear that a lot. We did War Room. The reason why we did War Room is because War Room is the place where you can come and just dump your whole week and just become renewed. It's like a baptism with like lyrics. Like you just completely dunk yourself in the lyrics and you come out ready for the rest of the week. And it's really powerful and it's really beautiful as well. So we sang about 6 songs, and then you do a prayer in between each song, as I'm sure you guys heard many times before. But as LA, you're bringing something. You want to show them how to do it right? So we go there and we're about to sing the first song, and we're about to do a prayer. And so I forgot who it was. I think I asked somebody, or it was myself. I was like, you need to pray hard. Like you need to yell, cry, scream. You need to just set the standards so that everyone else can be able to, raise up their frequency to meet us. So it was super powerful, yeah. I think in the beginning, the first half of their prayer, they faked it. But then towards the end, it was real. Because it got pretty real. I started crying, really started to feel the Spirit. And the message started to get even more deeper about how it's our individual responsibility to make a difference in our own unique way, right? Jermaine's mission versus my mission is probably very different, right? It may be similar. I don't know. Maybe we can look back and figure that out. But we have to recognize that you can't look at somebody and say, oh, I can't do that, so I can't be a part of this. That's what I've come to realize. Everyone has their own unique talent, gift that God has given them, which is so amazing. We got to see a lot of that over in New Hope Church. So that was on Friday. And then after that, we had a whole other day of divine principle and outreach and stuff, and we got to do a little bit of divine principle study, like the human fall and things like that. But the beautiful thing, the thing that I remember most about that day was that we actually got to hear about the mission of Christianity. Depending on who you ask, the mission of Christianity is probably slightly different, but the main purpose that I got for the mission of Christianity, there's actually 2. One of them was to be receive the second advent. Right? Prepare America to be able to receive the second advent, but also to be able to inherit God's heart. Right? A lot of Christians today, the fundamentalist, traditionalist individuals, they think that you have to go to a specific church with specific walls to be able to be saved by God and dunked in specific water to be able to have a relationship with God. And unfortunately, that's the background that I come from. And so being able to recognize that, the mission of Christianity is to inherit God's heart, meaning that there's nobody left out. Nobody left out. Even if there's someone who's sinning, you see as a complete sinner, you have to look at yourself and ask yourself, how is their sin worse than mine? So immediately having that heart of I can't speak up because they're I'm probably a bigger sinner than this person, or vice versa. And so really inheriting God's heart was something profound to me because I grew up around people saying, oh, that person's, they do this, they do that, they do X, Y, and Z. You have to be careful for them. And it was more of a condescending attitude. It wasn't necessarily this is my brother or sister that just needs a little bit of time and effort and he needs the tools to be able to recognize their full potential. And so that was a paradigm shift that I had listening to the mission of Christianity, and it's actually really beautiful. And it was just resonating with what True Mother said about what we need to do as Americans, as Christians, as unificationists, as Japanese and Korean Kodan and missionaries. It was really beautiful and really passionate as well. So I thank Reverend Bayou for taking the time to explain that to us for 40 minutes. It was really nice. And then after that, we did church mobilizing. Church mobilizing was intense. Not intense in like the best way possible. Okay, so my team, we went to 3 different churches. We went to the Revelation Universal Church with Prophet Maxine, and then we went to first we went to Temple of Praise with Glenn A. Staples. It was a mega church. So like imagine like this church, but like 3 of them, like pews over there, pews here, pews over there, and then some more like in the back. So it was really huge, and then they actually welcomed us. Like I guess they told the pastor like we were coming. And so there was just little like 5 pews of just like people from LA. And then the whole church actually recognized us and then like thanked us for coming out to go see them. Maybe they were kind of happy about it. They were like, yeah, they came to see us. But I think they were just happy in general to be able to see a bunch of youth wanting to come to a church and worship together, being able to overcome, look past all these differences that we experience in today's society, right? It's very polarized. So being able to come together, seeing, Mexican, Black, Korean, Japanese, Caucasian, all these different faces come together in one party, it was really beautiful for a pastor to see, and it was really powerful as well. So remember that when you're going out church mobilizing after service. So Glenn A. Staples, we had a really deep conversation with him after the sermon. We had a booklet that we got to show him all the things we've been doing with Bishop Noel Jones, and he was really moved, again, with the power of the youth. The youth are the individuals that, they're the foot soldiers, right? And then our elders are the ones that give us, the guidance and the commands and things, and we actually go and carry those out. And it's really beautiful, and I was trying to make that point to him, and at one point, Naoko-san said that he started sweating, and I wasn't sure why he started sweating. I think it was a good reason. Maybe he was just like so fired up, like, wow, these kids are moving. But yeah, he started sweating for some reason. And then he basically blessed the individuals that were all there. There was like 6 or 7 of us backstage. And he actually anointed all of us. It was actually really beautiful. As a representative of CARP, I was the one that received the oil. But he was really blessing every single individual in that room. And it was actually really beautiful because, again, it was just reinforcing that each and every single one of us has that responsibility of standing up and being effective in your own unique way. So that was really beautiful and really powerful, and I didn't know what to do after I received the oil. I kind of just stood there awkwardly because that was a huge mission, right? Kind of like True Father. I'm not sure how he felt when he was up on that rock and Jesus just appeared to him up in the front, right? In the beginning, you're like, and then you move forward. So that's kind of what happened. I got to experience that. And then lastly, we did 2 more things. We did a pilgrimage to Washington, D.C. We got to see the Washington Monument, the Lincoln Memorial, and also the Korean War Memorial. The reason why the Lincoln Memorial was so profound and deep to me was because we got to see the dark yet necessary history of America. A lot of the times, people look very humanistically at the history of America. And, some things are driven by human desire, but then you can really tell looking back that some things were really that needed to happen from God's perspective. And it was really powerful being able to see and learn about an individual that was able to recognize the God-centered purpose of America way back in the day before a lot of people could recognize that. And so thinking about it, it's like, okay, so Lincoln figured it out way back then, and right now, why am I still thinking about it? There's a whole lot of people that were able to recognize America's purpose, and now I'm here still questioning it. So it was really a profound experience for me to be able to recognize that, the foundation has already been laid. I just need to be active at this point. And then lastly, we went witnessing with Edwin Perry. It was really powerful. We went to University of Maryland. Yeah, the University of Maryland. And Edwin Perry, I guess it's been a while since he's witnessed. So he was kind of nervous. It was cute. He was nervous to go witnessing. And so, so we got to approach 2 people, and it was a really powerful experience. Whenever you go witnessing, you want to be able to have God's heart or be able to see from God's perspective when you're trying to understand somebody else, right? It's really easy for us to see humanistically, like, wow, this person seems materialistic, or wow, this person seems really quiet. But really, you have no idea what they've experienced in their past, and that should make us want to be able to reach out to them even more, because you never know what that individual is experiencing, and you never know how lost or how far they are away from being able to experience God's love. So that was really powerful. And so throughout the whole trip, I was thinking about True Mother's message, about, True Mother's age, what True Mother's doing, all the messages that she's been sharing with us, how frequent she's been giving that message to us. And, some individuals say that they don't like, I've heard kind of that she says the same thing in a lot of her speeches, which, it's not entirely true, but it just made me think again about, she's trying to drive something into our heads. And she's trying to drive something into our heads that isn't the most comfortable thing to be able to accept and hear, right? Because a lot of us, it's really easy for us to kind of get into our schedules and situations and things, and it's easy for us to be really external and think about, how we're doing financially and things like that. But what True Mother needs is our heart, right? Our Cheongsang. I'm pretty sure, yeah, that's how you say it, right? So, in the beginning when I first saw True Mother's messages, I noticed that she kind of repeated herself at some points. I didn't recognize it, but then once I was able to come to that realization that, some of us come here, including myself, and we don't really feel like we need to contribute. And that's the scary part, right? Because the foundation that we're standing on right now came from sacrificing 40 years of somebody's life in America in a foreign country. And we're able to sit in this beautiful building because those individuals sacrificed their lives, because those individuals got, ridiculed and persecuted and, maybe even questioned whether or not they were doing the right thing. But now here we are, being able to look at one another, to the person to our left and our right, and be able to recognize that, you are infinitely and absolutely valuable in this providential mission. And so yeah, True Mother, every time you listen to True Mother's speech, you got to watch it like 3 times, right? And be able to, really focus on the beginning, middle, and end, because it's hard to focus on all of it at one time. But really, True Mother's message for America was really something that touched my heart from the Hyeojung trip. I'm finishing up. 2 more last points. And the mission of Christianity. Yeah, so, how is Christianity going to be able to accept the second advent if, they never experience one of us, right? If we never go up and talk to them, they're not going to see it on NBC or like CNN anymore. But, they're not going to be able to experience True Parents' heart if we're not out there moving and talking to them and asking them questions about, the 8 questions, right? You can start there. But don't think of it as like some intimidating, survey that you want to give them. Think of it as like a conversation, right? You're talking to this person about what they value. You're talking to this person about, what they think about the world. And then from that, you're able to share your perspective. And then 9 times out of 10, your perspective, or the divine principle, is going to be able to fulfill some gap or some hole in their life. And they might not experience it at that moment, but then once they experience your heart of wanting to continuously meet up with them and reach out to them and, talk to them, it's actually really beautiful because you start to build up this foundation and this spiritual energy and like this, I think it's, give and take. You start to create more and more energy. So it's really beautiful when you can do that. And I'm trying my hardest to do that as well with some of my friends as well. So I hope that, through this, I was able to convey, the Hyeojung trip is something where, just like the workshops and things like that, it's something really beautiful and profound for students and youth to be able to experience because, being here in the secular world, it's really hard to be able to experience the providence. It's really hard to be able to keep that in your mind and have it right in front of your face unless you're inside this building or at a workshop or something. So we really need each other. We really need to support one another. We really need to recognize the importance of mobilizing, outreach, and also, witnessing as well. Because without that, then this movement is going to die. So please, I hope that, we can all be inspired to be able to move forward. And usually I'm a little bit more lively, but it's kind of hot up here. And so I love you guys so much for sitting down. And I just wanted to close with a scripture really quick because I really find power in scripture. So I just want to close with Matthew 5:3 this time. Actually, just Matthew chapter 5. And it goes like this. It was the introduction to the Sermon on the Mount. So it said, "Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up to the mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach. He said, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit.'" Right? If you don't have money, you're blessed in your spirit. "For theirs is the kingdom in heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek," or the humble, "for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom in heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way that they persecuted the prophets, they will do to you." And then lastly, really quick, it says something about, "You are the salt of the earth, So you got this saltiness, right? Divine principle is that saltiness that you guys got. And if you put down the divine principle, if you put down your morals, your ethics, your standards, your relationship with true parents, then you lose your saltiness. What good is salt if it doesn't have saltiness? No one's going to use it. No one's going to seek it. No one's going to desire for it. So I don't have a divine principle. Pick up your saltiness and use it effectively, right? And if you're intimidated, reach out to your elders, reach out to your brothers and sisters and ask them how you can get started if you have a friend that you think could receive divine principle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's great. Let's give a really big hand of applause for Ori. Thank you so much. Wow. So there were